Hey, what's up, guys? Kane here with XPLA fans, and I'm just wanting to give you guys kind of the things I wish I'd known before I started playing No Man's Sky. This is an incredibly deep game, there's a lot going on, and obviously there's tons of guides on specific things like making money and, all of that, trying to figure out how to do everything as quick as possible. To be honest, though, this is one of those games that you kind of just want to explore a little bit, and like a lot of what the game really is just playing your own way and kind of doing things the way you want to. That said, there are a lot of things that I wish I'd known from the start. And I'm just going to go through some of these, and hopefully they help you guys out, because I know I wish I had known them. So first thing I want to talk about is the fact that your pack is honestly pretty limited when you start out on how many slots you have. When I pull mine up in a second, you're going to notice this pretty quickly. You're going to look at it and be like, huh? I don't have that many. Or maybe you won't. If you're a little more familiar with the game, you've probably realized that at every single space station, you can come up here on this, I guess, left-hand side, we're going to call it, and you can talk to this little station right here, and you can add slots to your pack. Now, not only can you add slots to your pack in the cargo section, in the general section, you can also add text slots. This is a pretty cool feature that I don't think a lot of people are using, because I know I wasn't. At first, I didn't realize I had even those different slots. So, first off, it's really helpful to get those extra slots to begin with. And not only that, make sure you're using your technology slots and your cargo slots when you can. Another thing I want to talk about is just how much these safes just really add to the game. Having these cargo units, these like cargo safe things, they're absolutely amazing. These storage containers are just absolutely mind-blowing to me, because so one of my biggest complaints was always the fact that once something's on my frigate, I can't touch it. But anytime you're on a planet that you have a base, you can access these storage containers. It does not have to have the storage containers built on them. You don't need to build them. You don't need to walk up to them. You just need to be on a planet that has that base. And the cool thing is, I'm going to show you right here, you can get stuff off your frigate this way. As long as you leave an empty storage container slot, you can put it into that storage container, and then you can grab it from that storage container and put it on your person. And that's just super cool to me. Now, another reason you're going to want to pay attention to your bases is you can teleport to them at any time from any space station. Now, I'm going to show you really closely here. I haven't named most of mine. This is a huge mistake. Honestly, name your stuff. That way you can tell where you're going and where you're dropping. I did this blind. I had no idea what system I was going to end up in. Ironically enough, this is literally, I believe, my first base. This is from the tutorial type missions, you do at the absolute beginning of the game, where it just tells you to throw up a couple walls and all that. So, like, I had no idea what was going to happen when I jumped out of this, kind of warp here. And I was kind of pleasantly surprised and also a little annoyed at the same time that I ended up in this specific system. And one of the biggest things you can do to just make sure you avoid that is make sure you start naming your stuff. Now, bases are huge in this game. Now, when I say that, some people are probably going to be immediately caught back and be like, they don't matter at all. And you're right. You don't need to build these little huts. There's no reason to really go Minecraft on it unless you just enjoy that. You don't really need to put up these walls and build these little huts. It's not exactly the most useful thing. But what bases are good for, in my opinion, is creating those warp centers. And I like to put them anymore near a resource that I know I'm going to want. So this is one of those blue stars or whatnot. I have indium there. That's something I know I'm going to want at a later time. I'm going to put a base computer down. I'm going to sit here. I'm going to make a base, and then I'm going to rename it. And I'm actually going to name it for the resource just so I can remember where I need to go. As much fun as I love naming my bases things like Quesotopia or Tacos, that really doesn't help me at the end of the day if I forget what's at them. So that's why I've started, to be perfectly honest, naming my things after things that are going to remind me what resources are there. It's a pretty basic concept, but it's actually really useful. And I'm going to jump in a second and just kind of start talking about actual, bases and what you can do with them before I get into some other topics as well. So this right here is what I would consider my main kind of resource base. It's on a planet that has a lot of things I like to farm. It's got copper, it's got salt, it's got chlorine, and it's got basically no environmental hazards whatsoever. It's a pretty safe planet. And you can just see that I have, you know, those different little resource harvesters there where I can grab things from the atmosphere, which is really great. And then you can also see I've got these multiple refiners set up here. And these are pretty clutch because I love this trick right here. You can stick hydrogen in, and it will come out as the hydrogen jellies. And then when you put in that, it'll swap it back out. And the cool thing about it is it's costing you 30 to make the jelly, and the jelly's paying off as 50. So basically, I never have to actually worry about farming that anymore. That's one of those issues that you run into early game that doesn't become as big an issue later in the game because you can obviously start to find uranium, which again is on this planet. Another reason I love this planet. So this is kind of like my main home world in a sense where I do a lot of my kind of resource gathering. But I have a different home world that I had already kind of built up, and that's got my main base on it. And we'll talk about that in a second. But here's another thing I want to kind of show you is that you notice that beacon over there. The problem with that is I had already kind of destroyed all the resources around this base. So I had to put my auto harvester way, way out there. There's a bunch of things near that beacon with the auto harvester at least, but it's kind of frustrating to have to go over there. So that's why when I was planning that other base earlier in this video near the Indium, I made sure to not destroy it. As tempting as it is to take it before you leave, you kind of want to leave it there. That way you can stick one of those things up there. It's just a really nice kind of thing to get going. Now this right here is kind of like the first base I built. Honestly, that's the main reason it's on this planet. It's not even really that great a planet. It just happened to be one that I felt like at the time wasn't that bad. Ironically enough, it is an extreme planet, so I got to deal with, you know, the constant sentinel activity. But the nice thing is, it also has a lot of things I care about. It's got those kind of, you know, venomous jelly sacks that I can grab, as well as a ton of Gravitino balls right around here. I've got all my things built up so that I can do all my different missions for, you know, the farming, for the tech, for the science, for the weapons. That's all up in there. And then this is the area I kind of got a little bit creative. You can do whatever you want in this game. Yeah, this is a complete waste of time, but it was fun. And don't forget that that's why you play the game, you know? Now, scanning is something that took me a little bit to figure out, honestly. And there's a couple different ways you can do this. You can kind of just do the mobile air scan approach. You know, just fly around and just look for buildings. Obviously, you can see resources pretty easily on foot, but you really don't want to waste a lot of your, you know, launch fuel and whatnot, just constantly getting up and down, unless you see something you actually care about. So I like to do it like this. I just go around and I hit my scanner while I'm flying around, and then I just drop down when I get near something. Obviously, I still can't fly in this game. I mean, who would expect a guy making a tutorial video to know how to do basic things like that? But no, we're just going to land here, and this turns out to be one of those terminals. The cool thing about this terminal is a lot of times you're going to find something like drop pod data in there for like pennies on the dollar. And when you do find something like that, you can either flip it for a lot of cash really quickly, or you can just kind of, you know, decide to buy it and use it for something. You know, like drop pod data obviously is very useful. You can find more slots for your inventory slots. This one had some, you know, kind of rare crafting components that you need for some more later game stuff in there, and you can use those if you really wanted to. I could have bought them, but I chose not to. Now here I'm going to actually drop down a portable scanner and show you guys how those work. Those you can either have, you know, the data that you can put in, or you can just do a scan. The scans are pretty convenient, but honestly not always the best. If you happen to have the data, you can find the exact specific thing you're looking for. So for me, like a lot of the times I'm trying to find, and I'll input this data, and then I'll just go down and I'll try to find a distress call or something, you know, and that's what I'm kind of curious to see. Or, I mean, you can go in and you can find whatever it is you want. There's different things, different outcomes. If you find one that you like, you can just kind of, you know, keep doing those type of things. And that's something I like about the game. And it's going to just mark it for you. This makes it really easy. Instead of, you know, just kind of flying aimlessly, you know exactly where you need to go. Now, making money in this game, there's a lot of different ways to do it. I kind of like grabbing all this stupid stuff like Gravitino balls and, you know, venom sacks. It pisses off sentinels. Now, like I said earlier, this is a high sentinel planet. It's actually quote-unquote extreme because of how insane they are. So they're going to get pretty angry with me just for grabbing these. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about how what you can do to kind of drop their aggro in a sense. Obviously, if you guys are trying to make money insanely quickly, there's better ways than doing this. This is just kind of the stuff I do because I kind of enjoy it for whatever weird reason. So when I want to drop aggro, I like having areas that I can just, go inside a building. That's why I've kind of built my base by those venom sacks again, because it just made it easy. I could just run right in here, not have to worry about it ever again. So you can just sit in here. You can do this with just about any building. So anywhere there's a building in the game, there's a lot of, structures that you can use. Just completely drop aggro. Now, because this is, a quote-unquote super high security planet, these guys are going to kind of still pay attention to me even when I leave. Normally, that's not an issue you're going to have too often. Now, you got to remember, these sentinels are going to get triggered by you destroying stuff or taking these kind of high-value objects right in front of them. And that's going to kind of piss them off. Now, the high-value objects, actually, I think it's going to proc them no matter where they're at. But obviously, if you're, farming something and you keep lasering it right in front of the sentinel, it's going to pay attention. Now, this is something I absolutely wish I'd known a lot sooner. So, you're always tempted when you have something, just go to space and just warp away. Now, I'm going to have these kind of sentinel ships chasing me. Now, there's a couple different options I could have had. I could have put down my frigate. My frigate honestly doesn't have fuel right now, so that's not the best option. For me, I'm just going to go straight back down to the planet. If you get these guys chasing you in space, it's going to be a hellish time, to be perfectly honest. So I like to go all the way down back to the planet. You will have to get out of your ship to get them to stop kind of chasing you. And if you just kind of land down, no longer will you have to deal with the ships. And the ships, to be honest, are a lot more problematic, in my opinion, to dodge than the actual baby sentinels. No matter what difficulty you get those sentinels at. Because even if they're at, quote-unquote, the highest tier, you end up with this walker, and it's not really the scariest thing you're going to ever have to worry about. So, I'm not really worried about the fact that they're chasing me, so I'm just going to keep grabbing Gravitino balls. I'm just trying to make some quick money. And, as you can see, they're a little more pissed at me, but, I'm not stressing this. This is not going to be hard to get rid of them. There's a lot of different things you could do. You could dig down into the ground and try to kind of avoid them that way. You can honestly normally just run away. And they'll eventually leave you alone. Not that hard. Another strategy, and instead of just showing this, I'm just going to talk about it. But you could literally just pick up more Gravitino balls and just kind of fly away. If you just kind of coast in the air, more or less you'll almost always drop aggro. If you keep going way too quickly, it seems like they will continue to kind of notice you as well. Now, I mentioned a little bit earlier, there's a lot of ways to make money. One of the more fun ways, in my opinion, is kind of to go all Indiana Jones on the game. At least to me. I kind of like these. I like exploring ancient ruins. You dig around, you find some keys, and then you open a chest. The chest could have something that is worth a ton. In my experience, I've only ever gotten stuff around 200, 300k, but from what I've read online, I'm on the baby end of this. Theoretically, you could just hit something that just goes crazy here. Now, there's obviously a lot of other ways to make money. The egg strategy is incredibly viable. If you ever happen to find one of those abandoned kind of buildings that have eggs around them, all you got to do is just dig a hole underneath the eggs. And I like to make it so it's a slanty ramp, and that'll allow the eggs just kind of roll out. There's a ton of videos on this. I'm not going to cover it for this in particular, just because I feel like if you are looking for that, you've probably already found it. That's pretty much the number one result that's going to pop up if you start asking how to make money. To me, I think this is just a little bit more enjoyable. Also, kind of like the randomness of just, opening a loot crate in a sense. It's just kind of fun. Especially because you can unlock it in-game and you don't have to pay for a loot crate. But obviously, there's a bunch of other ways as well. Different planets are going to have different prices on different things. You could, literally be a commodities trader if you really wanted to. This game gives you a lot of different options. You can do a lot of different things with this. And obviously, there are some high-end crafting components that you can later make that you can make an insane bang for your buck just flipping them once you have all the recipes. But to get those, you're going to kind of have to explore a little bit to find them. You're going to want to do your scans. You're going to want to do your kind of quest lines for the ones that you need to do for that. And there's just a lot of different things you can do. So, I mean, in this game, there's pretty much never a moment where there's not something to do. And that's something I like about it. is you can just kind of always find something. So like I said, it's literally just a loot box. Once you get the keys, you can just open it right up. You need 3 keys for all of these. A lot of times you're going to find even 4 or 5 keys at a location. I've yet to find one where I can't get enough keys. A lot of times your box is going to be buried, but the nice thing is you can always scan it. You're never really going to have to just completely guess. And even if you were, typically everything is kind of connected as if, you know, a giant sandstorm has more or less buried the structure. So both of the things I found here are on the far low end of the spectrum. Not exactly brag-worthy for a video per se. Now, something you always want to remember is that every single different system has kind of its own unique pros and cons and stuff when it comes to trading. It's also got some different things that are going to be going on when it comes to the type of vehicles you find, as well as the type of resources and type of planets you find. So different stars are going to have different things, and you're going to find different kinds of things depending on what kind of system it is. So, you know, whether it's a Gek or a Vy'keen or whatever else going on. So I'm just going to kind of show you the inventory on this one. I'll show you an inventory on another one in a little bit, and just let you guys kind of see that they are a little bit different. There's certain things that I like to buy when I see it. Pyrite is one of them. I'm just kind of lazy, and I really don't like having to find it. It just allows me to never have to worry about my ship running out of fuel. There's certain things that are a little annoying in the sense of you can't find them in those inventories. The main one normally being carbon. Obviously, carbon's everywhere. And if you really want to, you can buy oxygen and just burn it in a refinery. So we're going to warp to another system here, and we'll kind of show you guys some stuff here. Now, as far as the galaxy map and the different planets and different solar systems and whatnot, there's so much I could talk about here. This could be its own video, and if you guys actually care about this, I could go through it. But you're going to find yellow star systems, red, orange star systems, green star systems, blue star systems. You're going to have different kind of galaxies within all of those. And certain ones, obviously, you can only get to with certain kinds of drives. You're going to have exotic biomes. You're going to have tranquil galaxies. You're going to have ancestral galaxies. You're going to have some with just extreme planets. You're going to find a lot of just kind of rare things in some of these, and you're going to see some really cool things. Like, I've seen some absolutely bonkers planets, and those are what would be considered an exotic biome. And you find some really cool things that way. Some won't have space stations. You know, you'll have uncharted star systems. You'll have some that are abandoned. It kind of changes things up, and you got a lot of different things going on there. And that's something I kind of wish I'd known a little bit more about how all that worked. If you're just curious about it really quickly, the wiki has a lot of good information on that. And you're just going to see some cool things this way. Now, I mean, I said I'd show you guys again another one of these, you know, kind of buying and selling trading stations, just to show you there's a difference between all of them. Obviously, depending on what, you know, system you're in, you're going to see a lot of different things with whether or not certain resources are more or less expensive. Now, one thing I didn't realize, though, is depending on what race is kind of, you know, in control of the system, which you can tell by just looking around really closely in your, you know, space station, it's going to dictate what kinds of ships are actually more likely to be available. For example, haulers are more frequently going to be found in Gek systems, whereas a fighter is more likely going to be found in a Vy'keen system. Explorer ships are more likely to be found in a Korvax system. This is actually a cool little mechanic they've kind of added into the game, and it kind of reminds you that you kind of need to pay a little bit of attention to a lot of things like that, which is something that would have been pretty easy to overlook otherwise. Now, hopefully you figured this out on your own, but obviously each of the different factions is going to be important to kind of, you know, work your way up with each of them and work your reputation up. What it's going to do is it's going to give you different dialogue options the higher the faction rep you have. You want to make sure that you talk to every single person inside a space station, because you might be able to find out some different information from them. Whether it's, you know, getting some dialect help or finding, you know, an abandoned, you know, freighter that's crashed on a planet. Depending on how much of your faction rep you have, you might have different dialogue options that show up or don't show up, and then you also have the ability to get, you know, different blueprints depending on the trader. Each of the different factions specializes in a specific type of, you know, blueprint technology. So, you know, the Gek are more likely to have starship stuff, whereas the Vy'keen will have more multi-tool. And as you advance in those different things, that's going to allow you to kind of go through and get more of each of those. So you can do a lot to gain reputation. You can go to the mission board. You can give them the specific gifts they want. You know, you can do the various quests and stuff that are going to be on the different planets. And, you know, even just helping the freighters from the pirates. It's going to allow you to get some different things that will help you. And obviously, I have more rep with some factions than others. As you'll notice, I have a little bit more luck sometimes with Gek than I will some of the others. And that's because I've talked to a lot more of them. Talking to everybody on a space station, though, is just really useful because you're going to find some cool things out. And they'll each kind of, you know, give you different options and let you learn more about each kind of system you're in. Now, I'm going to end with this because this is something that I think is pretty obvious. And I just hope that it's something that kind of, you know, works for everybody. But you really do want to learn to just start scanning everything. First off, you're going to get credits for it. And while it's not a ton of credits, it does add up over time. This is not going to be something that's going to get you, you know, that next starship you need. But while you're already exploring anyway, you can do it pretty quickly. And not only that, when you do scan something like a mineral deposit, it's going to let you get that second resource that's going to be attached to it. So whether it may be ferrite and salt, or, you know, ferrite and uranium, which in my personal opinion is one of my absolute favorites, you'll be able to get different things that way. You're going to want to make sure that you continue to scan. Sometimes you'll find a rare scan that could be worth a lot more money. I didn't happen to have that kind of luck while I was doing this video, but you can end up with scans that are worth a decent amount of money. You want to make sure you're doing this not only just to, you know, environmental things, but also to planets and stuff as well. You've got a lot of potential here to just kind of, you know, get some quick resources and some quick money out of it. It's one of those mechanics that isn't very difficult to do, but a lot of people kind of forget about. So these are just kind of some things I wish I'd known when I'd started playing No Man's Sky. It's a really beautiful game. It's something that, I mean, gives you a lot of opportunities to just kind of play the way you want to. There isn't really a right or wrong way to play this game. You probably have your own tips that I didn't include in this video, and I would love for you guys to post them in the comments to help each other out. I just really like this game. I've had a ton of fun with it, and I wanted to chat with you guys about it. Thank you guys so much for checking out this video. I really do appreciate it. We'll have more content for games like this throughout the year. Please do like and subscribe. It helps out a ton. There's some really cool planets in this game, as you can see here. This is one of the ones I kind of like, more of an exotic kind of biome. But you guys have no idea how much liking, sharing, subscribing really does help us out. So thank you guys so much. And I really do appreciate it. And later.